The focus of airlines is clearly to reduce emissions in sector by making, for example, billion-dollar investments in latest generation aircraft and sustainable aviation fuels. However, what we see in the short and midterm, the sector will have to deal with residual emissions that we cannot reduce in sector. So what airlines need to do is to invest in carbon offsets to reach the sector's net zero pledge. We are estimating that airlines in 2050 will have to invest in approximately 700 million tons of emission reduction, which represents an investment of around 10 to 30 billion US dollars. And of course, that depends on the carbon price we'll see in the future in 2050. Clearly, airlines will have certain very specific or different requirements and needs when it comes to the investment in emission reductions. CORSIA, the carbon offsetting reduction scheme for international aviation, for example, will require airlines to invest in a specific type of carbon credits that are eligible under CORSIA. On the other hand, today, we have more than or close to 50 airlines that have made voluntary commitments to reduce emissions. And those airlines will use CORSIA and non-CORSIA eligible carbon credit that is of high quality. At present also, we have 40 airlines that offering passenger offset programs. And here again, the choice will be quite different actually to the one invested under, for example, mandatory schemes. The reality is here that in the carbon market, there are quite a number of players and options how you can trade or procure carbon, which makes it somewhat a difficult exercise for many of our members. So IATA has come up actually with solutions to assist airlines with this specific task and has developed the Aviation Carbon Exchange, also better known as the ACE. And the ACE is really a dedicated marketplace for airlines to trade on this exchange to procure CORSIA and voluntary carbon offset, which gives them also the market overview and the best price for a given project. There are indeed quite some differences. Passenger offset programs are very bespoke and focused on the needs of the different passengers. For example, passengers like the idea of an investment in specific projects that provide socioeconomic co-benefits that are community-based, or maybe even located in a special or in a specific geographical location. Those programs, passenger offset programs, are also linked to relatively low volumes. Opposed to when we look at the industry-led efforts, we're looking at much larger volumes and investments that help airlines to meet their different commitment. In those cases, airlines invest in larger portfolios of high-quality offsets, using mechanisms that help them to secure a carbon price for future delivery, for example, of the credits, while they can preserve the cash that is needed right now to really manage the current crisis. The CCS technology is actually not that new, and back in the 70s already research had started and the technology was developed. The difference here to carbon offsetting is that emissions are not reduced or avoided, but CO2 is basically sucked out or removed from the atmosphere. So CO2 can be captured from the ambient air and then as part of chemical or industrial processes, solidified and then stored in underground earth formation. This could be, for example, depleted oil or gas fields. So when the CO2 is geologically stored, it is really permanently removed from the atmosphere. And what really happens here is that it will actually result in a negative emission. And that's some very big difference to some of the other offsetting mechanisms that we see. What the IPCC clearly stated is that the role of CCS is absolutely critical to limit our global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius. And that without actually the use of that technology, the target cannot be met. So the positive aspect of this technology for aviation is that the CO2 captured can actually be used for the production of sustainable aviation fuels. There's one drawback, however, is that the current CCA plants are only capable of capturing pretty low volumes of CO2, and the technology is still extremely expensive. So with time, this is expected to change. The plants will scale up the volume they can capture, and the cost will be coming down, that's for sure. So CCS is really an interesting and promising technology in the future. And I think for aviation, it is an important instrument that we can tap into in the future. We have to understand that the offsetting schemes are linked to very specific carbon offset standards or programs. And those programs actually have embedded very clear and stringent rules to ensure the carbon reductions are real and permanent. So it really starts with setting a solid baseline from where the reduction can be measured. And this is an exercise that happens on an annual basis. And then in addition to this, independent audit organizations come in and validate the emissions reduction before they can actually be issued, and certificates or carbon credits can be issued into the market. So basically this exercise will provide the assurance and also provides the confidence in the market that those emission reduction that we see having been issued are real and permanent and can be trusted. In my view, some form of offsetting will exist for some time. However, the offset volumes used by airlines will gradually become lower and lower due to the new radical technologies that will basically taking over and making the use of those carbon offsets less important and necessary. So it will take some time, but certainly slowly but steadily, the use of emission reductions will become still necessary, but gradually much lower in terms of the volumes.